I first met Brad because we were both in the same truck down in Wellington and the occupation there. And I've really been watching him because I can see there's tremendous qualities there in Brad. It reminded me of a story of Goethe's, where there's an underground cavern and there are 4 kings. First 3 kings, there's a king of gold, a king of silver, and a king of brass. And the king of gold represent these wonderful king-like thinking forces. And the king of silver represents these heart forces. And the king of brass is the will. When the brass king speaks, you can imagine the strength that's there. And that to me has been Brad all along. You'll hear it in his speech. He's got amazing thoughts. His mind is very mobile. He's got tremendous strength, physical strength. He's a tradie and all of that, but you just see it in his perseverance and how he goes about things. And tremendous heart forces. You can really feel that. Now in Goethe's story, there's also a 4th king, and he's called the mixed king. And in that, gold and silver and brass are all mixed together. And it means that for a human being, the equivalent of that, if you have a thought and then you react straight away. And it's a little bit dangerous. And I have watched Brad, it's as if he's been gradually trying to convert himself from being the mixed king into having these pure forces of gold and silver and brass. And he's doing that. That's what I feel. Clear thoughts, strength, and wonderful heart forces at the same time. Brad Flutey.
Thank you. That's beautiful. My name's Brad. I come from I guess you could say, a diverse background of knowledge. Some people might call me a jack of all trades, master of none. That's accurate.
Lovely.
Yep, that's accurate. We have a society that have a huge amount of specialists in it, and they're very valuable. They're very valuable because if you want a job, one job, done really, really well, you need specialists. But if you're going to be able to put a whole bunch of specialists together so that they see the whole picture, you need people who are competently pursuing the jack of all trades role. I can't do specialisation. It bores me. I can't do it. I like to know a lot about one thing and then move on to another thing, and then another thing, and another thing. And then I try to form this hypothetical third perspective so I can figure out what on earth is happening here. And there's other individuals like that who have done that. Mark Passio, who's watched any of Mark Passio's stuff? Hands up. All right, everybody in this room, I'm going to set a challenge for all of you. By the end of this, and you've gone back home, and you've somehow managed to get my email address out of this, I want you to email me and say, I've watched Mark Passio's episode on de facto Satanism. And oh my God. Okay? If you want to know what's going on here, for a start, watch that. All right? It's a guy that's gone in to these groups and sat there and watched for years. Now, I've done that. I sat in Extinction Rebellion, I sat in radical leftist circles, and I watched. And some of it was appealing. Some of it was confusing. Some of it, I ended up asking questions like, are we not proposing to do the same thing as the individuals we hypothetically oppose? No answers. By the end of it, I realised I'd gone from being quite religious to quite ideological, and I was watching everyone around me become dogmatists. We'd created echo chambers and where we were affirming our bad ideas and our good ideas. Problem was there was a lot more bad than good. Mm-hmm. And we were absolutely certain that bad ideas were going to be the solutions to bad ideas. And before we knew it, we were what's known as a walking contradiction. And the people in these circles who started asking too much questions ended up being pushed out. You're ruining our safe space, is one thing that was said. So I am a liberal. I'm quite happy to be a liberal. I'm quite happy to be a creative, but I agree with conservatives when they say every idea is not a good idea just because you say so. They're quite right, because the world has been pushed towards oblivion on the assumption that a bad idea is a good idea many times before. And that's where we're at. We've decided to stop listening to traditional conservatives. We've decided to assume that everything that they're saying is overly critical, and we're operating in this form of mass ignorance. And we have no idea where we're going. Ask any of these greenies like Chloe Schwarbrick, all the people that follow her, where are we going? Utopia. Oh, how do you know it's utopia? Don't worry about that. You'll know when you get there. Oh, okay. How come all I'm observing is forms of dystopia around me? Oh, well, in order to get to utopia, you have to walk through dystopia to get there. And they'll use these other sayings. You've got to break a few eggs to make an omelette, as if an omelette is society. You can use philosophies and good statements like you need to break a few eggs to make an omelette for some things, but not for all things. Murphy's Law doesn't apply to everything. It applies to very precise things. That's why we have the conversation. One of the conversations I was asked down in Wellington was, one of the questions I was asked down in Wellington, they asked me to come to this media training event, and they wanted me, Sue, Tane from Voices for Freedom, and Ruth to say a statement that we thought people would disagree with. And so Sue said her statements about compassion and 1080, and it was very good. And I thought of something really, really bold, something that everybody would disagree with. But I was going to try and change their frame and get them to agree with my standpoint. So when it came around to me, I said, we have no democracy. And the media lady goes, that's ridiculous. You can't say that. It's not true. Of course we have a democracy. Even Tane Webster said, Brad, I don't even know where you're going with this. I said, hang on. You guys are rushed. You're in a rush. Slow down. What's a democracy? Is it a conversation? Have we not been down in Wellington, parked outside Parliament, waiting for a conversation? Politicians, they don't want to have a conversation with us. And if democracy is a conversation, a continually difficult, robust conversation, and those who claim to be the representatives of democracy won't have the conversation with the people they disagree with, who are you to tell me we have a democracy? And she went, oh, that's good. I never went to another media training thing again. It's not good to have someone on the stage basically in a few sentences showing how you don't have a democracy if people who disagree can't even talk. You have to have conversations between people who disagree, because a lot of the time mothers and fathers disagree. If they stop talking, what happens to the family? Breaks down. So, what you're in at the moment is a state of warfare. I'm not going to tell you why I know that for sure, but I'm going to give you resources and where you can figure this out for yourselves. That's my motto, think for yourself. Calvin's motto is question everything. Okay? There's a book. It's called Sun Tzu, The Art of War. I can tell you with a reasonable level of certainty that the individuals in Parliament, that's their Bible. If you want to know how they operate, know that book inside out. I'll give you 10 rules. Number 1, know your enemy and know yourself. That's from the good book too. It's the most important lesson from that book. Know thyself, know thy enemy. Because the thing they're afflicted with lives inside of all of you too. The thing that gave them all this power, all this mana, your complacency. They wouldn't be able to do anything bad and corrupt unless they could hide it. How are they able to hide it? Your eyes are not shining enough of a light on every little dark corner. Yeah. And that's not happening because there's a lack of attention. Complacency. Good times create weak men. To be more precise, good times narrow your perception. They want to narrow your perception. If you don't have perspective, you can't see what they're doing. So, know your enemy, know yourself. This is the most important lesson in the art of war. If you know your enemy and know yourself, you will not be imperiled in 100 battles. Who feels like they're being drowned in issues at the moment? Do you know what imperiled means? Go extinct. Yeah. 2. Appear weak when you are strong and strong when you are weak. This is a lesson about deception. By appearing weak when you are strong, you can trick your enemy into underestimating you. They also use kindness as a way to hide the strong things they're about to do to you. They could not have done this under Christopher Luxon. They needed her face, the face of a DJ. Put your hands up if any of you actually believe that a DJ could run a country. At any moment in time, be honest, it's okay. Accountability is something we all have to take on. If we can't put accountable people in Parliament, I kind of thought that briefly. I saw that kind little face and I thought, oh, yes, we do. Let's do this. But then I asked a question, do what? Those answers aren't forthcoming. So everybody that's going to put themselves out as a representative of yours, and they've got your heart, they've got your mind, and they've got your spirit entrapped in their narratives, ask them how they're going to bind themselves to the things that they're telling you. Right? Because inside Parliament there's a lot of contracts and confidentiality agreements. Well, I've been flittering around politics. One of the things I've heard the most is, we can't say anything because of our confidentiality agreement. So you're not binding these people before they go in, someone's going to. Learn how to bind them to you. You're all constituents. If you want to send people out to fight for you, make sure their armour is built out of a document that binds you to them. Constitutions, covenants. Important things. 3, attack where the enemy is unprepared. This is a lesson about surprise. By attacking where the enemy is unprepared, you can gain an advantage. That's about keeping your enemy in a state of reaction. If they're reacting all the time, they can't plan and prepare. There's a saying we have in the military. Proper planning and preparation prevents piss poor performance. Right? If they're not reacting to you all the time, they're planning and preparing. Wellington, good example. They wanted us in a state of reaction all the time. The moment we went and shifted concrete blocks and got a train of convoy cars in, they were reacting. They didn't like it. They immediately sent a message out through all the people that were in there. Who organised that? Brad. One of the guys in the leadership group goes, you better keep your head down. They're looking for you. Oh, whatever. Next minute in the cells. There's that mixed king thing again. Not listening. I won't make that mistake again. Or maybe I will. Make use of spies. See how that flows into the next one? They made use of spies. They didn't like being stuck in a state of reaction. You should have seen all the police officers' faces when they came running down Bowen Street. They were ready to do stuff to everybody on Hill Street. Then they had to turn around and run all the way down Bowen Street. And they'll come down, they were tired, and they're getting chanted. People were chanting, we just won, we just won. Morale had lifted. They were reacting. Higher-ups didn't like it. Who did that? Get him out. Right? If they're reacting, they can't plan. Okay? And if they can't do that, they'll make use of spies. Spies can provide you with valuable information about your enemy. There's a fool in there who knows a little bit about Sun Tzu, who's making a fool out of us. We want it to stop. 5, use terrain to your advantage. The terrain can be a powerful tool in battle. By understanding the terrain, you can use it to your advantage. Their goal is to control all terrain. That's dumb. And I'll tell you why when I get to the 10 rules of how to take your enemy's ability to wage war away from them. All right? There's a book that hasn't been written yet that we need to write. Peaceful people need to write a book that takes away a warring enemy's ability to wage war. And you can do it by just inverting this. 6, be flexible. The situation on the battlefield is constantly changing. You need to be flexible in order to adapt to these changes. I love being flexible. but I'm also impulsive. That's why I need to be surrounded by conservatives that go, are you sure that's a good idea, Brad? Because I'm going to go, yeah, man, it's the worst that can happen. It's already bad enough. Flip the table over. 7, concentrate your forces. Don't spread your forces too thin. Instead, concentrate your forces on the single point of attack. They'll do this in their actions to clear us out of Parliament, but they're not doing it in general. The fact is they are spread thin and getting thinner because they are undermining their own people. They actually have to treat their own people like mushrooms. Now, I don't feed my mushroom shit and keep them in the dark, but essentially that was the rule. 8, strike at the enemy's heart. The heart of the enemy is their will to fight. If you can break the enemy's will to fight, you will win the battle. How do they do that? They get everyone to focus on the issues and not building the solution. Everybody is constantly trying to comprehend all the little details about the things that they're doing to us. And therefore our thoughts, remember Hermetic Principle 1, the all is mind, our thoughts are constantly going over the issues and we're reinforcing what they're doing unconsciously. Right? Goes back to the good book, build it and they will come. You put more of your energy into building the solutions, that's what will happen. First comes thought, then action. Okay? Doesn't mean that you don't look at the issues, right? It's a very good thing. You need to know what precisely you're building a solution for. Because if you're building a solution for the wrong thing, your partner's going to go, you did the wrong thing, you didn't listen to me. Which is fair. That's why women like to talk about the problem and make sure they get a good grasp on it so you're not going off and digging a hole in the wrong place. Okay? Mm-hmm. But you can go too far. You can drown yourself in the issues. So where's the ground? Where's the middle ground? How do you find that? Democracy. Conversation. Okay? 9. Now this is their biggest flaw. Use deception. Deception is a powerful tool in war. By deceiving your enemy, you can gain an advantage. Right? So everything about what they do is based on deception. In order to pursue the greater good, we have to lie a little bit. But the problem, when you lie, you get trapped in that. Now you have to lie about everything. And you have to create a lie to protect the original lie. And so on and so on and so on. It gets exhausting to the point that you capitulate. Liars have a very, very stressful life. So be glad that you're on the side of truth, eh? 10. Know when to retreat. Sometimes the best course of action is to retreat. By retreating, you can preserve your forces for future battles. So Jordan Peterson actually does a really good explanation on this. The millimeter creeping of tyranny, right? They'll come in a millimeter. They'll impose on you with their rules. And if you protest, they'll back off and wait. Then they'll come again. And then the moment your complacency takes over, they've taken that millimeter. Yeah. All right, now we want to do something else. Millimeter again. Oh, they've protested. Come again. Oh, they're a bit more complacent. I can come again. And they'll just keep coming as long as you let them. Right? But they do retreat. So know thy enemy is the most important thing. Also know the psychology spectrum. Now all of you might not be able to see this, but I'm going to turn this around. We've essentially mapped society's psychology. And they put it in a horseshoe, not a straight line. Now I want to show how we think this kind of works. On the left we've got feminine. On the right we've got masculine. It's also an iteration. So principle 7 of the Hermetic principles is gender is in everything. There is always masculine and feminine energy. So there's only 2 genders. All right? We created another spectrum based off research into psychopaths. Now we've actually managed to put a whole bunch of other, what we call centrist psychopaths. That's David Rockefeller. That's Klaus Schwab. And we've put them all on the spectrum. We've got Mark Zuckerberg, hypothetical pursuit of equality. We've got Bill Gates, hypothetical pursuit of humanitarianism. We've got Mr. Rothschild right in the middle, pursuit of dominion and God status. You've got hypothetical environmentalism and the young little psychopath Greta Thunberg, Chloe Swarbrick as well. But essentially, all these individuals who are dogmatic in their belief structures, it's bastardized religion, they are essentially psychopaths. Mark Passio would call them de facto Satanists, right? Which, in another word, is egotists. They're possessed by their ego and dogmatic in the belief structure that they've created, and they are willing to use people to roll them out, followers, so to speak. And they have massive followings. And I'll put him at the top there. Put too much megalomania around this guy, he'll go in the wrong direction too. It's Elon Musk. Right? Megalomania has actually been the fall of all of our revolutionary heroes throughout history. I've done a history section of this workshop that shows how this repeats. Napoleon Bonaparte, Alexander the Great. Right? Megalomania is their downfall, and it's because we put all this pressure on them. We don't think for ourselves. We don't question them to keep them balanced. So we have to be very careful as constituents about what we do to all these popular faces, including me, right? Well, it's important. Like, if your people who are standing up and putting themselves out there are not going to encourage you to make them accountable, they could be taking you down the road to oblivion too. Okay? Now, I got onto this, me and Carl got onto this a while ago, and the reason is because of the last slide. If the world is being convinced to be insane by everyone they follow, countries around the world need to start building self-sustainability for themselves. Because if these people continue to do what they're doing, the world's going to get a whole lot more selfish, because they're all going to start having less. And if we get left off the map sometimes, we may get left off the map in terms of resource distribution. And so it's very, very important that we find our own very robust ways to get our own resources and evolve our ability to do a responsible job with it. Like regenerative energy, not considering waste, turning it into a new form of energy. Instead of burying all of Auckland's waste in the Dome Valley dump, having a waste to energy plant that turns it into fuel. All these sorts of stuff. We shouldn't be stripping Marsden's refining capabilities and turning it into a solar panel and putting solar panels on arable land. We should be expanding it to take in waste and turn it into something that can be used. Like, if Auckland's going to consider all of that waste because they're short-sighted, all of us out in the regions and the communities can go, well, with our innovative Kiwi spirit, what can we do with that? Right? This undermining our ability to innovate our way out of solutions, innovate our way out of problems, smashing that while smashing people in order to solve environmental problems is nonsense. This is why people like my friends have left sustainable development models. Destroying or smashing humanity does not solve problems with the environment. It actually just makes it worse. How do we know that? History. After World War II, things for the environment got way worse. Rachel Carlson's book, Silent Spring, she wrote about it. So they've done a number on this, haven't they, Carl? They've done a real number on this refinery. They've told us that it's impossible to reinstate. Once upon a time, it was a sand pile. And out of that impossibility popped up a refinery. Most of the infrastructure is still there. Yes, it's very hard. Yes, it's very expensive. It's not going to cost as much as the COVID-19 response to reinstate. Nowhere near. But yes, it's expensive. But if you were able to turn the massive movement of awareness that we have now, which is into the 100,000s, into a concerted effort to convince 1 million motorists to get their energy sovereignty back through wise implementation and reinstatement of infrastructure you already had in key places where they're supposed to be, at the end of a pipeline to Auckland and at a deep water port, then it's absolutely possible. It's just The how we need to work out through conversation, the details.
We're going to have a government that's willing to do it.
Yeah, that's part of it
the
too.
main one.
So the airlines have already trying to seek answers for their third batch of fuel since November. So here's the other problem that they didn't foresee. Although we import a lot of fuel, that's true. But how much of it is to standard? That's the question. Well, we haven't been testing for quite a while, so we don't know. But they have to, because the worst thing that could happen is a plane fall out of the sky. If your car clogs up because the fuel's not to standard, you just pull over. But if a plane falls out of the sky, that's no good. So what they're finding is that the aviation fuel's not up to standard. It's probably not up to standard in your car, which means it's probably wrecking your car, which means your car's probably going to leak more, which means the waterways are going to get diesel in it. So no, the closing of the refinery did not make things more environmental. Not at all. It also helped to add to massive inflation, of which now you can't even afford to maintain your car properly. I actually had to learn how to service my car because I can't afford it. That's how bad it's getting for even people who just work 80 hours a week to keep up. We've had to make, which I put a positive attitude on, cool, now I can save money when it's not too hard and I can build regenerative business models. But not everybody is in that state of mind, eh? And it's hard to get them to that in times like this. So that's what channel infrastructure is going to do. They're going to cover all this arable land with solar panels instead of putting them on roofs. Genius. And they don't have resource consent for that. So this has resource consent, as Carl quite wisely pointed out, the most important thing about having a refinery is having resource consent. That's the most expensive thing you have to get. Already has it. So that hurdle's out of the way. So if people were worried about cost, if you needed to reinstate your refinery, it's going to cost less to do it there. And if people doubt, I'm all about gathering proof. I need to gather proof for everything. So in the papers up in Te Tai Tokerau, Northland, on the 22nd of June 2023, we have had Meridian coming and getting the local iwi, which it's not a te reo word, I'll tell you that now. It gives the I the power to speak for the we. Hapu don't actually advocate for that. I can't, if you've been to a marae and they say, I can speak for myself, but I cannot speak for him. I can't speak for any other hapu unless they've given me the authority to speak for them. Iwis are a bastardization of our tikanga. Right? Iwi corporations are essentially an attempt to run roughshod over hapu and to claim that, oh, because I'm Māori and I set up this trust, I can speak for all these people. No, they can't. A trust deals with property. So when the Patu Harakeke Iwi Corporation came on and they said, oh, you need to leave because the kaumātua said so, oh, I want to speak to the kaumātua. I never actually got to speak to the kaumātua because he had a stroke. Yeah. And yet the Iwi Corporation went to the media and said that the local hapu and the kaumātua had asked me to leave. No, that's not true. They came down as an Iwi Corporation and said, well, this is our whenua, Popo whenua. And I said, who are you? And they said, oh, we're Patu Harakeke Trust. Yes, that's correct. So how do you have authority over people and land? Well, that's not, yes, it is relevant. You're a trust. You can have authority over property. What property do you own here? Answer is none. I said, respectfully, you have no authority to tell me to go anywhere. You go and set up a hapu collective, or you get the hapu collective to set up themselves, because that's how it's supposed to work, and they can tell me to leave. You come down here again and tell me to leave, I'm going to use harsher words next time. You can go now. And I had people around me with their mouths open going, how can you say that? You can say that. Doesn't matter whether you're white or black. If someone comes along and says something to you and says they have authority over you because I'm this, question it. Because it's likely that they don't.
Yeah.
Our people use race to trample all over your mana. That's not tika. That's not pono. They're basically trampling over their own tikanga. Call them out on it. I'll support you, and there's many of our people who support you as well, because those people are no different to the Crown than to us. No different. They are partners of the Crown. They are the crown. This is our situation at the moment. This is Europe. All of Europe is ideologically subverted, suffering from the same divisions we have within culture warring against culture. And it's done through media and universities. They said that in order to invade Europe, you would need a trident of weakness, 3 points of weakness to get in there. Ukraine's been weakened, Turkey's been weakened, right, which gives access to the entire Mediterranean Sea, and the USA used bases in Sweden to bomb Nord Stream 2. Russia's got 3 excuses, and they've kept themselves lawful. They're waiting. What are they waiting for? Winter and a distraction. The distraction will be the Pacific, because the USA is subverted, Australia is subverted, New Zealand's subverted, the Pacific is weakened under bad loans given to them by the CCP, and conflict is brewing between the CCP and Taiwan and North Korea and South Korea. And these guys play warfare like they play Go. Who's played Go? Go is a game in where you get a whole bunch of pieces and you surround your opposition. These guys have never forgiven Japan for what they did to them in World War II. So they will be assembling pieces all around the Pacific to surround Japan. And if things kick off, here we are all the way down here with drastically reduced ability to self-sustain ourselves. Yeah. Right? So although I'm concerned about the COVID and politicians and all the diarrhea that spews out of their mouths, I'm looking ahead and going, what's really going to hurt us that we're not paying attention to right now? And we need to solve the problem of making sure that the light of example to the rest of the world, which I believe lies in the people here, are self-sustained so we can calm this down when the time comes. Be the rhythm. There's a principle in the Hermetic principles. It's the principle of rhythm. The measure of the pendulum swing to the left is the measure of the pendulum swing to the right. And everything in the middle that's in that wake is in danger. Rhythm compensates. If we can't find a way to bring rhythm back to society, that pendulum's going to smash our people and our land until we can do that. Just going to keep going like that. And our politics has been doing that for years. It's just been accelerating. So we really need to start paying attention. And how we stop this is we need to start taking away these psychopaths' ability to wage war. So I've come up with 10 new rules. Like Jordan Peterson, he likes to make rules. And this is take away your enemy's ability to wage war. 10 rules. And it starts the same. Know your enemy. Or know your opposition. It's a kinder word. Because they're a bit lost. They are still you. They've done some really bad things and they need to be held accountable to that. And this is the most important lesson in the art of war. However, your enemy only knows a straw man of you. It does not and cannot know your true potential. So your enemy doesn't actually know you. They only care about your straw man. And who's heard about your straw man? Hands over your head. Who wants to see proof that that's actually true? Cool. This is the definition of man in the 1856 Bowier's Law Dictionary. And I'm going to read you a sentence in the definitions. In a more confined sense, man means a person of the male sex, and sometimes it signifies a male of the human species above the age of puberty. Vida rape. It was considered in the civil or Roman law, of which you have here, statute law, that although man and person are synonymous in grammar, they had a different acceptation in law. All persons were men, but all men, for example, slaves, were not persons. Now, your own legislation tells you this too. Person includes a corporation, soul, a body corporate, and an unincorporated body. That's the interpretation section. Okay? To them, persons are slaves. Are you slaves? No, you're men and women. It also says it in Weiss's Concise Trustee Handbook, of which all of you need to have a copy of. All right? It's how you own nothing and you're happy. No, I'm serious. It's how you own nothing and be happy. And in that, it defines very robustly how a person is considered in civil and Roman law. It's your persona. It's your acting persona. It's not you. And they even define it in the court decisions. So here's a court decision from a court case. I won't say which one. Here the three main actors are Constables Howie and Brown and Mr. Flutey. I'm an actor now. Who knew? And in order for you to get into a little bit of trouble in the lower courts and possibly the higher courts, you would have to be enjoinder to your person. I.e., you would have to sign, commit fraud, and say that you are the person charged. That's express consent. There's implied consent, signs. That's why legislation has a piece of legislation that says New Zealand Sign Language. You might think that's for deaf people. Not just for deaf people. It's for people that walk in, cross the bar, go into the dock, identify as a person. Signs, tacit consent. Right? They can't mandate people without you giving the sign that you consent. Or if you commit an act of violence and actively refuse instead of asking questions of their lawfulness. So joinder, joining or coupling together, uniting two or more constituents or elements in one. Don't want to be enjoined to your person. And they acknowledge express trusts in their legislation. So what Weiss's Concise Trustee Handbook says about persons is absolutely relevant to them. So this is why I like to gather proof. It essentially gives you some sort of solid footing to stand on, so when you walk in there, you're not in doubt over what you're saying. They know it. They just want to know that you're certain of it, because they'll test you. And if you're not certain, you'll crumple. 2, I like this one. There's rule 2 of taking away the enemy's ability to wage war on you. Appear foolish. It's my favourite. Appear foolish. Play on the aggressor's tendency to become prey to their own arrogance. Those who hold power underestimate you. Even if they wanted to, they cannot change that. To claim to hold truth and therefore total power is arrogance writ large. Use that against them. So if someone stands up on a podium and says, "We will be your single source of truth," you'll go, I know your weakness now. You're going to proclaim something like that, you must be arrogant to some new level I've never heard of. So I'm going to accumulate much knowledge and be foolish so you underestimate me all the time. 3, keep your opposition in a state of reaction. They rely on planning and preparation to seek unattainable perfection. If they are in a state of reaction, they can't plan. If they can't plan, they can't practice being something they are not, perfect, or single source of truth. Therefore, they will make foolish decisions that reveal their true self to the public. Their persons, rule number 4, their persons are treated like mushrooms, fed poo and kept in the dark. You can feed your mushrooms better stuff, you can feed them organic bran and you get more out of them. You don't have to feed them poo. And you don't have to keep them in the dark either. I give some shade so they don't get scorched, but a bit of light to give them some colour, some melanin, and are therefore perpetually undervalued. This is undeniable even for their spies. Every one of them is potentially one of your future allies by pure necessity for collective survival and the preservation of life. You just have to convince them of that. That's the reality. All their people do not know that by staying in the boat that is run by elitist people who only care about themselves, you are on the road to oblivion with them. So it does not matter that an individual is temporarily not on your side because they think they need to do that to survive. The reality is they're doomed if they continue to be on that side. And so once you know you're on the road to oblivion, you need to get off. And it's kind of akin to this visualization. Imagine being on a boat and someone has convinced you that the boat is so corrupt and that everything is just so wrong and you can't fix it, that the only way to solve everything is to drill holes in it. Now, there's people that have realized quite precisely that if you just got rid of the individuals who are corrupt from the positions of power, whether it be first mate, who's marketing policies to the crew, or captain, who's directing the ship wherever he wants to, so long as the policy marketers can keep the crew in line, and that destination is like a cliff, a waterfall. But he's dogmatized it by his belief that if he gets over this waterfall, he's going to get to utopia. He's crazy, he's insane, he's lost his mind, but first mates feel like they need to do what they're told because he's the captain. And so the first mates go around and they convince everybody to start drilling holes in the ship. And some people step up and go, whoa, what are you doing? This is wrong, the ship's going to sink. No, it's not, we're going to utopia. You guys are crazy, what do we do? Remove the captain and the first mates. And then start healing all the trauma that is embedded in the people who are drilling the holes in the ship and just won't stop. Their obsession with order is their weakness. It is. They're obsessed with it. Their need to control all terrain makes them stretched by default. Use that against them. All right? They're trying to control they're trying to control every facet of human life. And to some degrees, nature. It's insane. They can't do it. And so they're going to eventually fail. So use that insane pursuit that they're engaged in against them. It's not possible. Be flexible. The situation on the battlefield is constantly changing. You need to be flexible in order to adapt to these changes. Innovation is not their strong suit. Those who cut themselves off from God cannot manifest competently in a pinch. They can't. Source ain't going to allow you access to the infinite if you are engaged in actions that are rebelling against the existential conditions of life, of which was created by the infinite. It's just not going to allow you to tap into that anymore. If you're Bill Gates now, all of a sudden you're going to have to borrow ideas from other people, and if they start talking about how awful you are, you're going to have to cap them. That's all they do. They take good ideas, they steal it, put it into a management structure, and make lots of money off it. Why don't they manifest their own ideas? They can't. Know what the opposition relies on to function. It's a creature of dependency, right? It's a creature of dependency. In order for it to exist, it needs people to be dependent on it. If you're encouraging people to be self-sufficient and think for themselves and a more evolved form of independence every single day, what do we need that thing for? Concentrate your actions on what they depend on and turn their dependencies into your unconscious assets. 8. Turn the enemy's warfare tactics into strikes that undermine itself. War is its Bible, so it wages war as a rule. Can't help it. If the enemy is stuck in a pattern that it can't change out of, what does that make it? And predictable. Through subversion, it has emasculated its instruments and therefore made them averse to war. I didn't think about that. Everything that believes in them wholeheartedly is put off by the slightest threat, even if it's not really a threat. So, for example, the Posey Parker event. Now, we were going to have a Stand By Our Woman event in Whangarei. We were having that thing. And there was a massive group of individuals from the LGBTQ, and some of them were my friends, until I started saying, well, you should leave women's spaces to themselves. If you want your own spaces, you should pay for it. And they didn't like that, and they were going to come down in their droves and march on this Whangarei event. So I did a live. What did I have hanging around my neck? My hunter's knife. Now, I didn't mean anything by it. I just put it there and just see what happens. None of them turned up. They all pulled out. Even Chanel Lull put put on Twitter, don't turn up, there's going to be scary, violent individuals there. We didn't care it was a lie, but then we got to say what we wanted without being berated by people who didn't care what our point was.
Remember that?
All I had to do was they're cowards. At the heart of it, they're cowards. Right?
Absolutely.
What really bothered me about the Posey Parker event is that we could have had a massive asset from overseas who got to speak her mind here if all the men weren't down the road somewhere else.
Show yourself.
So what I will say is make every strike they engage in an exercise in the continued demoralization of their own army, but do not be the martyr that will demoralize your own people. Don't make plans and where you make your own people martyrs. That's not something I advocate for. It does sell a good story that compels the heartstrings of people, but from my masculine perspective, I'm more than happy to debate on this because there's there's an abundance of different perspectives on this, and I value the collective story. But if we're going to win, if we're going to get wins, I don't like seeing people get hurt when they could defend themselves. I got tasered and pepper sprayed, and yet those police officers landed on the ground, rolled off. I didn't strike any of them. They looked like fools with eggs on their faces, but I didn't look like the victim the whole time. They looked like two very unprepared individuals trying to tame a bear, and they looked stupid while doing it. So you want to try and get these balanced results out of these confrontations they enforce on you. Your enemy uses deception as a rule. People crave truth in times of mass deception. They crave it. Whether they're fully awake yet or not, they're craving something. They can't quite identify what it is, but it's got to be something more meaningful than what I'm getting out of my pie or my sausage roll. Okay? So incorporate their commitment to deception into a plan. Use the lies you know are coming to formulate future narratives of accountability and evolution. Remember, defamation is a crime in their rules and the law, and equity knows no time. So be patient, right? The media is racking up a huge amount of stories and where they have labelled me as something I've never been. I've never been an anti-vaxxer. I'm for the competent pursuit of immune therapy, provided it's competent immune therapy. It's always been my standpoint. I'm not anti-masks. I have to wear them to address a specific hazard in my mushroom room. They're not to be worn to protect you from a biological microorganism. You would not be meeting your obligations to health and safety if you did that for that reason. Therefore, you're being unlawful by wearing a mask as protection from a biological microorganism. I wear masks when they're fit for purpose, yet these media agencies have called me an anti-mandate, of which I'm also not against. I know the definition of mandate. I'm not for people using the word mandate without telling them what it means. It's an offer of contract. Comes mandatory upon acceptance of the mandate. People want to do that, that's fine, but you tell them what they're actually being delivered. Informed. So, and they've also called me an anti-masker. Wrong. So when I learn as much as I can about how to charge these individuals, they're in for a good one. So let the truth be your armour. Tell the truth. Because they're going to have to keep lying. And if the faith in the media is dropping, then bad stories about you is a good thing. Know when to tactically withdraw, not retreat. You know that a war is never won. There are no winners in war, only losers. If you must be framed as a loser, make sure the people see the ugly side of the winner. Donald Trump does this really well. He does. He's hard to listen to because he doesn't quite grasp the details in many different fields, but he plays this game well. They are constantly attacking him. Constantly. And he's telling people what to do. And you don't retreat, you tactically withdraw. Here's an example in Wellington. If we left on that last day before they all came with a whole bunch of individuals who weren't in the police, they weren't police officers, most of them weren't. And they turned up to a cleaned out parliament, all done by our court, and they turned up all ready to go, no one there, egg on face. Then they leave and we come back. And we leave people there to observe how they came in. How are they going to roll out this clear out after they've psychologically demoralized us with illness and repetition of noise warfare and all this other stuff? How are they going to come in to push us out? So we all vacate. We leave some people to watch how they come in. Oh yeah, they come in that way. Come back in. Plan and prepare. Be ready for them to do that again. And on we go until the police commissioner goes, we can't get them out, you have to talk to them. Yeah, you're lost. I know you hate that because you don't want to, but you have to retreat. Right? Know their rules. Got to get them to that retreat point. They're going to keep waging war in many different ways until they get their win. And don't be too worried about the wobbly middle. You've got enough people on your side as it is. Wobbly middle are a bunch of sheep on the battlefield who are waiting for the most popular narrative to spring its head up. And they'll go that way. In order to help these people out of the intense trauma that's been imposed on their life takes a long time. There's no quick way to do this. But we can't have them in there for a long time. Not with what they're doing. We can't afford that. So we're going to have to get a lot better at what we're doing, and we are. I think we are. Does everyone know what government means? Does everyone know what government means? Yes. What is it we want? Do we want governance? Do we want people who are actually going to just go in and represent the views of their community and their constituents? Right. You don't have that. And I'm going to tell you why. And it's basically all in the action and what they do when they get up on the podium. They are marketing something to you. Right? We actually think that ministerial position is the accurate definition of MP. You know what else there is for MP? Marketer of policy. Right? If that's what they're doing all the time, that's their job. They are marketing policy. Question you need to ask them is, whose policies are you marketing? Right? So if Jacinda Ardern's getting on lives and saying, we have to make sure we're meeting our obligations to our international trading partners. They're marketing someone else's policies, aren't they? So as constituents, the biggest things that you guys have to do is figure out how it is you constrain your people to marketing your policies. So a little while ago I would have said, don't worry about politics. Politics is a waste of time. I'm not saying that now. I'm saying that in order to overcome this awful beast, you're going to have to competently engage in a multitude of different actions. And in order to do that competently, you have to make sure the people that are going to market your policies are going to market your policies, bound to it. Because if someone else can bind them into marketing something else, you've lost them. So that's very important. So government is mind control, but you're always going to have that. You're always going to have mind control and governance. What makes sure that this is healthy? Constitution and the covenant. Okay? And I want to show you something. Who remembers when we had the flag referendum? Right. What were we doing then? Why did John Key want to change the flag? Well, I didn't know at the time, but this is where my activism started. I helped to sabotage this campaign. I didn't know why though, and that's wrong. Okay? Essentially, I'm behaving like a little Marxist if I'm going around sabotaging things and I don't even know why I'm doing it. But I know now. Imagine this island we're on is a ship. And there's three things a ship has. It has a flag, has a name, and has a constitution. Okay? Now imagine you are a villager or someone who's come from the community. You're a sovereign individual, right? Say you're a man. The only one that's in charge of your life is my wife, and she's told me I need to go out on the sea and earn some money so we can do some things at home. And so I'm going to have to go and find a ship, and I'm going to have to exchange my sovereignty for some privileges. Okay, I'm going to have to transfer from being a sovereign individual into being a citizen. And I'm going to walk over to a ship, and I'm going to look at its flag, and I'm going to go, oh, that's a lovely flag. That's a lovely, lovely flag. I like that flag. And then I'm going to look at the ship's name. Oh, that's a lovely name too. I love the name of that ship. And then I'm going to read through all the details of the constitution that constrains the captain and the first mates down, so there's fairness in this relationship, equity. And I'm going to go, oh, I quite like that constitution. Is that constitution express? Is it going to stay like that for the entirety of my time with you? And the captain will go, yes. And you'll hope he's telling the truth. Mm-hmm. And you'll board that ship and you'll become a citizen. Now, this island has a ship in the harbour. And its name is the United Tribes. And it has this flag, which is the Te Kara flag. Okay? And it has a Declaration of Independence there as well. He Wakaputanga. Who's heard of He Wakaputanga? Cool. I'm going to try and tell this story in a very direct way that people can comprehend, and I've taken this to a few kaumatua, and I've taken it to my friend Calvin Alp, and he goes, yeah, it's close. He said, it's much closer than the other ones I've heard, so you're all right. Well, we're going to have a conversation about this because I want it precise. And he goes, eh. Now, the third thing that this thing is supposed to have, this ship is supposed to have, is a constitution. And what I've written here is, pending the unification of the hapu and communities into a nation under a constitution we can all agree on. Haven't done that yet. 171 years, still haven't done it. Yeesh. Now, this family actually gave it to us. This family is the Hanover family. King George IV. Now, the crown at the top is the St. George State Crown. Is the royal family wearing that crown now? No. That crown, that office, has been vacant for a generation, according to Gregory Bowen. That's the first agreement the United Tribes got into. Pros of the ship that's sitting in the harbour that has no constitution and therefore cannot go sailing the seas to trade. No debt. More lawful standing on the land. First in time, best in law. It has a better story, or it could do. The creation of a lawful nation during unlawful times. Could be a cool story. But there's cons too, and we have to weigh these up. Right? It's important to weigh these up because there is no silver bullet unless you've paid enough attention and put in enough consideration into this. It's hard to unite. 171 years and we still haven't got it together. Okay? Now, one of the rangatira that signed Te Tiriti said we're going to be arguing over this document for 200 years. And he's right. Because there's two versions. They're supposed to be in joinder and they don't mean the same thing. And that's a problem. An agreement induced by fraud cannot stand, and it's a fraud to conceal a fraud. Those are maxims of law. Maxims of law are statements that are consonant and just with reason. So they stand the test of time. And the third one, inexperience at governance. No, that's the second one. We're inexperienced at governance. And our third one is we have a current lack of international allies, but thanks to individuals like Chantal Baker and Operation People, that's changing. But we do need to know this story. It's important to know that we have another ship in the harbour. And if we unite and sort out our problems, we could change our stars, so to speak. Now, the other story is way more complicated, so I'm going to blast through it. There's a family, Saxe-Coburg-Gotha family, and that crown's much different. That's the crown of the Holy Roman Empire. It's the British crown of the Holy Roman Empire. And that family originally came from the House of Wetton. I know this because I'm indirectly related to this family. And that family was also collected by the Holy Roman Empire back when they were collecting royal families back in the day. And then you had the Revolutionary Wars between Napoleon, and it got a bit sort of hairy there, and then they had to sort of shift from Europe to Britain. So the Holy Roman Empire basically has this family here, and about the time when George IV transferred his power to Queen Victoria, according to the Hanover rules, you couldn't actually do that. And so that was when the Saxe-Coburg-Gotha family took over, and that's the coat of arms that came out under Queen Victoria. See how the crown changed? She couldn't wear that. And then they tried to get a treaty going with us that ended up creating this corporation here that now governs. Okay? And most people agree that this thing kind of sucks, because it's got two versions that don't mean the same thing, and unfortunately for all of us, we have to take the te reo version, which means all of us natives who were born here never ceded sovereignty. Unfortunate for them. Now, so how did they do that? How did they go and try and take jurisdiction rather than building this? Well, they lowered the naval flag of the United Tribes. So they lowered that flag. See how it's different? That was our naval flag. So they lowered that and they raised that. And on that document, they built governance and government. And the way they keep this going is they go around the country every year and they go to church, crown, kingitanga, church, ratana, crown, kingitanga, contract, te ti. And they do a little fiscal envelope ceremony. Right? And it's actually fundamentally an agreement between the crown of the Holy Roman Empire, the Bank of the Rothschilds, and the Church of the Vatican. Because the corporation down in Wellington is in massive debt to that. So who you're in debt to directs where you go. So this ship's got a lot of problems. But it doesn't matter, you've got to fix those too. Right? That ship's sailing. And we don't just give up on ships. And we don't allow people to drill holes in it willy-nilly. We have to fix that. So pros, we've got more numbers that conform to this complicated story because no one has given them a competent and feasible alternative. And the reality is, the United Tribes are going to continue to fight with each other and be divided until that's a long solve problem. Still need to do it. It owns lots of assets but also employs thousands who are complicit in crimes against humanity and consistent incompetency. It has existing trade agreements that are good for the economy, but many of them are complicit in crimes against humanity and are regularly engaging in ideological incompetence. So some pros and cons in the pros section, but it's still the same. If there's corruption on what would otherwise be a good ship, that needs to be cleared out. All right, there's several individuals that are desperately trying to get the cutter flag ship up and running, and they think that the only thing that they can do is drill holes in the New Zealand ship. No, build it and they'll come. You've got to build the ship first before you sink the other one. And once you've built the ship, you might go, oh, why do we need to sink that one? Okay? So cons, currently on the ship we have a net debt of 51.6 billion and we're borrowing 6.6 billion a year. But our GDP is about $375 billion a year. Okay? So that's just terrible spending.
Could they ask permission from us so that they can borrow money from overseas, from the people?
It's implied. That's the best answer I can give with 3 words. This ship is full of ideological possessed incompetence. And those we are in debt and in contract to run this ship. Okay? So long as you're in a mortgage, a death grip, You are going to be directed by other individuals. But just like the Game of Thrones show, it's not the Iron Bank that's your problem. It's the ones that's spending and borrowing from the Iron Bank. The Iron Bank will always be the Iron Bank. So we've got two ships and we've got two options. But I'm always a guy that looks at three options. So we either get this more lawful ship up and running or make this unlawful ship lawful. And I say, because there are a decent amount of numbers who are committed to doing both, you should do both. You should do it better. Does everyone agree?
Yeah.
So, we've got a few questions after going through all of this. How do you, as collectives, because you are a collective here, you guys regularly get together and you try and solve problems together, which is good. We need to keep doing that. Take away this entity's ability to wage war. Arm yourselves with knowledge and continue to do so every single day. And get out there and practice what you preach. Walk the talk. Build unincorporated collectives or societies that are united by constitutions or covenants. Make sure they guard your collective from dogma. Right? Your children have to be reminded through constitutions and school that dogma is the thing. It just changes its marketing skin to hide it. Define common sense, otherwise known as the competent pursuit of truth. You don't hold truth. You're always perpetually trying to pursue it. It's always just out of reach. You are but a spark of the divine. You are not it. Undo the repetition of nonsense with the well-marketed repetition of common sense. I think people like Leighton Baker and Liz Gunn are doing a really good job with this. Leighton Baker with the short videos, simply just saying they lied. And then people come and ask questions, would they lie about? And then we'll have the conversation with them. Find the thing that most of the populace can agree on and get into the door of their mind with that. I've chosen the refinery reinstatement. State of our roads. Fuel quality. Having to import how much CO2? What was the size of the containers?
220 ton containers.
220 ton containers. Who's been down to Tauranga and seen Container City?
Which used to cost $2 a kg out of the stack, and it cost me $3 a kg out of the container.
Yeah.
And I can't get nothing.
So this is why it's important to have me and Carl. Carl knows all of this stuff. I'm trying to market it to people who find it hard to listen to all the details, which I think is a travesty. People need to know the details, but we have to work with what we have. Yeah. So we have to communicate with people how they want to be communicated to, meet them where they are, right? That's the thing we have to find. So if you're talking to somebody like your neighbour and they're not sort of done all the work that you've done to get to the comprehension level you're at, be able to climb down the ladder of comprehension to meet them where they are. So you're always starting with a question. What is it you're most concerned about? And because you've researched a whole bunch of different things because you're passionate about everything, you might know that. And so you can have a conversation about the thing that they're most passionate about, and then they'll like you. Like, this person's really listening to me, and I'm feeling like I'm living in a society where no one listens to each other anymore, yet that individual is listening to me. And then you'll be able to start talking about the more difficult things as you progress through time. That's how it works. And so build self, and then once you've done that, once you've got your collectives, once you've got a good relationship going on in your communities, you build self-sufficiency amongst your collectives and your networks. So in order for you guys to continue to thrive and spread the message, you've got to be able to look after yourselves, right? So, and that also includes exchanging energy amongst your collectives. Don't give your energy to the problem. They'll go, thank you, more issues. Money, pay, issues. If you cut off the money stream to the thing that's drowning you in issues, they'll come out, where's the money for us to do this media narrative to make them drown in the issues? They're not paying us anymore. What? And we've got our own media out there marketing the solutions, our own marketers of policy. saying the things that we want said, and we're providing all the things that we need for ourselves, and our communities are benefiting off that. That's self-sufficiency. That's a circular network, right? If that thing ain't working for you anymore, don't pay it. Encourage them to continue borrowing fake money from the IMF. Keep all the things of substance, because that's what matters when money crashes. That's why Bill Gates is buying heaps of farmland with his fake money that he made off fake jabs. And so one of the things that I'm doing to get repetition out there, the repetition, right? So if repetition of stupidity is what's trapped everyone in this self-destructive behaviour, I'm going to try and get visuals out there all over the place that is repeating common sense. Just everywhere. Gas stations, putting these QR codes on parking meters, stamps reinstate the refinery on all the lampposts, gas stations having the sticker at the counter, with some pamphlets, gas station going, hey, petrol prices are sucking at the moment. Maybe we need to reinstate the refinery while you're buying gas. Beep, petition, sign, boom. Right? And then just keep evolving your ability to repeat common sense to people over and over and over again. Our opposition knows repetition works. They've managed to make nonsense something that they can impose on the public just by repeating it. So imagine the power that the repetition of sense would have. Much more than that. Right? You're driving along, boom, oh, there's another pothole, big sign. Fix our roads, fix our roads with imported bitumen. Yeah, nah. Use our language too. Yeah, nah. No, don't use she'll be right. that's reinforcing apathy. We call this stuff apathy assault gear. Right? So that's what they've done. They've used Sun Tzu's art of war to impose apathy onto the populace through repetition. And so how do you undo that? The equal and opposite reaction. And everybody in this room has that potential. And everybody in this room has an even more evolved form of that potential tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. And so what I'll say to all of you is, you know all the issues really, really well now. What's the solution? And my gift to you is to tell all of you that you are. Thank you.